Well, hello, my friend, and welcome back to our journey through the Proverbs. Today is, of course, day 21 of our 31-day journey. I'm so glad you're joining me and sticking with me through this adventure together. I'm having a great time. I hope you're having a great time. Let's jump into our text for today, which is, of course, Proverbs chapter 21. And in verse 1 it says, "The king's heart is in the Lord's hand like the watercourses. He turns it wherever he desires. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. A high look and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked is sin. The plans of the diligent surely lead to profit, and everyone who is hasty surely rushes to poverty. Getting treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor for those who seek death. The violence of the wicked will drive them away, because they refuse to do what is right. The way of the guilty is devious, but the conduct of the innocent is upright. It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than to share a house with a contentious woman. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no mercy in his eyes. When the mocker is punished, the simple gains wisdom. When the wise is instructed, he receives knowledge. The righteous one considers the house of the wicked and brings the wicked to ruin. Whoever stops his ears at the cry of the poor, he will also cry out, but will not be heard. A gift in secret pacifies anger, and a bribe in the cloak, strong wrath. It is joy to the righteous to do justice, but it is a destruction to the workers of iniquity. The man who wanders out of the way of understanding will rest in the assembly of the departed spirits. He who loves pleasure will be a poor man. He who loves wine and oil won't be rich. The wicked is a ransom for the righteous, the treacherous for the upright. It is better to dwell in a desert land than with a contentious and fretful woman. There is precious treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man swallows it up. He who follows after righteousness and kindness finds life, righteousness, and honor. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the strength of its confidence. Whoever guards his mouth and his tongue keeps his soul from troubles. The proud and arrogant man, scoffer is his name. He works in the arrogance of pride. The desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. There are those who covet greedily all day long, but the righteous give and don't withhold. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with a wicked mind? A false witness will perish. A man who listens speaks to eternity. A wicked man hardens his face, but as for the upright, he establishes his ways. There is no wisdom, nor understanding, nor counsel against the Lord. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but victory is with the Lord. Do loves me some Proverbs. Well, today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to focus on two verses that I think are very similar to one another, and that's verse 3 and verse 27. In verse 3 it says, "To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice." And verse 27 similarly says, "The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with a wicked mind?" Let's refer or defer to the New Living Translation, of course, once again, to get a little bit more modern translation of that. It says, and this is specifically of verse 27, it says, "The sacrifice of an evil person is detestable, especially when it is offered with wrong motives." Now, these verses to me, they are talking about hypocrisy, manipulation, and the importance of having a sincere heart when it comes to your love and obedience and sacrifice to God. Some other verses that had come to my mind in thinking about this was Matthew chapter 15, verse 8, where Jesus is talking to some very hypocritical religious people of the time, and he says, of them, he says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." Also in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7, it says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." And as somebody who serves and has served as a worship leader, I know the temptation to do things simply because of the attention and the validation that you get as a worship leader. You're in the spotlight, you're up there, everybody sees you, and there can definitely be this temptation like, "Hey, do you want to do this project? Well, am I going to be in front of, how many people am I going to be in front of?" It's a real temptation. And, similarly, I remember when I first became a Christian, there was this preacher that led our church at the time, and he was super fiery. I mean, I could just picture him. He would stand up there and just, his hand would be going, and sweat would be pouring down. He would be just preaching fire. Fireballs spitting out of his mouth practically. And to me, at that time, I was about 20 years old. It was so inspiring. And I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be a preacher. Why? I can tell you this. It certainly was not because I wanted to love and honor and serve God or serve other people behind the scenes. I wanted to be up in front of a group of people, spitting fireballs and preaching the truth and being revered and respected by all as this incredible preacher. Those are wrong motives, and certainly that was something that I was tempted with. Some people do things because they want to make others mad or envious. Paul said in Philippians chapter 1, verse 7, "Those others do not have pure motives as they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my chains more painful to me." And I think this is why we see a lot of Proverbs about the Lord testing our hearts. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you don't do things for money or for wages. Of course, the Bible says that the worker is worth his wages. For example, the Bible Project, I'm sure you may have heard of this. It's a channel on YouTube that has incredible videos. They do not monetize their YouTube videos with ads. And it's not because they're doing it for free, just out of the good nature of their hearts. They're doing it without ads because they have funding from other investors, so they don't need to do ads, which is a brilliant way of doing things. But I personally don't have funding. I don't have investors, so I need to rely on ad revenue to keep doing what I'm doing. But I will guarantee you this, I do not do it because of ad revenue. There are much better ways of making money than this. I do it because I love it, I'm passionate about it, and I really enjoy it. But I think many times we do service or we make offerings because we think it will appease our guilty consciences. Because I think we find it so hard to believe that God really does love us whether we obey or not. That's a tough one. So I find it helpful to ask, why do I do what I do? Why do I really do what I do? Why do you really do what you do? I think it's a fair question. And maybe after searching your heart, you can say with me my affirmation for the day, which is, I obey God with a sincere heart and pure motives. Now, that might be really difficult for you to say. But again, it's just something to put in your mind and to put into your subconscious so that when you are faced with these situations, you can recall these things and think, you know what? No, I do things out of a sincere heart and pure motives. Well, that's my takeaway for today. Hopefully you got something out of that. This next takeaway, this is from our guest, David. Once again, David chimed in earlier. David is from the Carolinas, and what he's talking specifically about verses 9 and verses 9 and 19, and he says, it is better to, well, not he says, this is the verse itself. The verse says, it is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than to share a house with a contentious woman. And then again in verse 19 it says, it is better to dwell in a desert land than with a contentious and fretful woman. His story here, he says, for some reason, my girlfriends tended to be overly dramatic. My relationships were high or low. When it was great, it was like a dream. But when it was bad, it was like a nightmare. There were times with each of them I could imagine getting married to them, but eventually the dream just wasn't worth the nightmare. Being married to them would have been like dwelling in a desert land or in the corner of the housetop, so I gave up entirely. I thought I must be one of those whom Jesus said was called to singleness, and I was pretty mad at him about it. Then I met Fran, the woman I had prayed for many years ago. Eve to my Adam, my missing rib, my soulmate. And the best part about it was it happened after I had given up on it. So now, she is a reminder that whether I'm glad, mad, sad, full of faith, or so frustrated I want to give up, God is always working for my good. David, thank you for sharing that story. I think that's a story a lot of people can relate to, and I think it's a really, really powerful story. So thank you for sharing that. And David's affirmation is, today, when my life isn't going the way I expected, I will remember God is always working for my good. Well, David, again, thank you for sharing your takeaway and your affirmation with the rest of the community. For you, the viewer, I would love to hear your affirmation. I would love to hear your takeaway. Please consider sharing your comments with us in the comments. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. There's more information about how to connect with us and about today's lesson in the description area of the video. But for now, so long. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.